The highest paying tenant is not always the best tenant. A lot of landlords end up losing thousands of dollars, not because they made a bad deal, but because they rushed the tenant placement process. Today, I want to talk about what that can actually cost you and what a proper screening process should look like before you ever hand over the keys. I'm Rachel Olson with the Talbot Greenya Group and Covenant Real Estate Management, and today I want to talk about tenant placement. When you own a rental property, vacancy feels scary. Every day the property sits empty, you're thinking about the mortgage, utilities, HOA dues, insurance, taxes, and maintenance. So when an application comes in, it can be tempting to rush. But rushing tenant placement can cost you far more than a few extra days of vacancy. The wrong tenant can lead to unpaid rent, property damage, HOA violations, lease violations, neighbor complaints, unauthorized pets, early lease breaks, legal fees, turnover costs, and months of stress. So what does a good tenant screening process look like? A tenant screening is the process of evaluating rental applications, looking at credit, rental history, income verification, and references to find the qualified applicant who meets the established screening criteria for the property. The right tenant is not just someone who says they love the property. The right tenant is someone who financially qualifies, has a rental history that makes sense, understands the lease terms, and communicates clearly. You cannot screen based on feelings, and you cannot make one rule for one applicant and a different rule for another. You need written criteria, you need a process, and you need documentation, and you need to understand fair housing laws. Fair housing laws require that all applicants be evaluated consistently without discrimination based on protected characteristics. That is exactly why written criteria matter, not just for compliance, but for protection. When you have a written, consistent process, you can show how every decision was made. When you are screening on instinct, you cannot. Why tenant placement protects the investment. At CREM, tenant placement is one of the most important parts of protecting the owner's investment. Because once the tenant is in the property, the lease relationship has started. It is much easier to slow down and do the front end work right than it is to try to fix a bad solution after a problem tenant is already in the home. This also matters if you are buying a property as an investor. At TGG, we do not just look at whether a property looks good or whether the numbers seem fine on a spreadsheet. Before you even buy, we think about who the likely tenant pool is, what the rental demand looks like in that area, what maintenance issues could pop up based on the property's age and condition, and whether this home makes sense as a long-term hold. Because real estate investing is not just about buying the property, it's about operating it well. If you're preparing to rent out a property in Winchester, Frederick County, or Loudoun County, and you're not sure how to set up a consistent, fair housing compliance screening process, talk to us before you list. Correct tenant placement from day one is problem prevention and risk mitigation. At CREM and TGG, we believe real estate is more than a transaction. It's a part of a wealth plan.